Welcome, everyone. Greetings. We're so excited to have you today at our Blue Zones Project Jacksonville Town Hall meeting, where we get the opportunity to share some of the amazing work that we're doing in partnership with this dynamic community. You can never go wrong with a little Stevie Wonder. So we have Stevie Wonder playing today as we continue this work together. So please know that we'll get started in about 1 minute. We're just welcoming everyone into the space and into the room. But while you're here, could you just let us know who you are, what organization you represent, or what side of town you're from? You can share your zip code if you're interested. We're just happy to have you in this space together today as we walk through this blueprint one with the other. So go ahead, and as soon as we see them starting to roll in, we'll be sure to shout y'all out, because we know that this work happens in community and it takes an entire community. So please come on into the space and welcome. Glad to have you here today.
Hi, I'm Kizzy Jones with the Florida Department of Health in Duval County. And
Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Welcome. Glad you're here. And if
Hello,
everybody
Hello, everyone. My name is Ty Grady. I'm the founder and CEO of Freedom Financial Institute. Our focus is to partner with organizations, business owners, and business leaders to promote financial empowerment, leadership effectiveness, career professional development, preparing for workplace shifts, and diversity and inclusion through workshops, coaching, and speaking events. It's a pleasure to be on this call, and I look forward to hearing about Blue Zones Project Jacksonville even more.
Perfect. Thanks so much for sharing, Ty. And I see we have a few people typing into the chat. We have seniors on a mission in the building. We have 32257 in the building, but headed toward downtown. The Coleman Shepherd feeding Northeast Florida. We also have 32244 in the building. So lots of community residents today. We're so glad you're here. And so we're going to go ahead and just turn the volume down a little bit as we hop into our meeting today. So I want to be sure that we have a little bit of time today. We have a pretty packed agenda. One of the first things that we want to go ahead and do is to be sure to welcome you all to this event, and also to ask you, if you would, to complete our pre-survey. So we have a pre-survey that we're going to use for today so that we can just know who's in the building, learn a little bit more about you and the work that you're doing. So we're going to ask if you would consider filling out that pre-survey for us. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this PowerPoint up and moving so that you guys can see this, and then we can start today's run of show. So I'm going to minimize my screen over here so you all can see. And this is the pre-survey. So if you have your cell phone, please pull it out, scan that QR code, and take the pre-survey with us today so that we can learn, like I said, a little bit more about who's in this space. And while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn today over to our amazing executive director, Nicole Ham, who will share a little bit about what today is going to look like, what our time together is going to look like. We're so excited to have you in this space. Please feel free to utilize the chat today as questions arise, and please be sure to mute yourself if you're not already muted. We're excited to get started. So without further ado, Nicole Ham.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and welcome to everyone joining us today. We are so excited to have you in this space. So today we do have a packed agenda, as my colleague Kristen mentioned. We obviously have already gone over the welcome and pre-survey. I'm going to share a little bit of background about Blue Zones, our Blue Zone story, and what even is our blueprint that we're talking about today. I'm going to share a little bit about our team and who is on the call. We're going to talk a little bit about national metrics and our local goals. And then we're going to have our leaders from each of our pillars, from policy, places, schools, and people, to share a little bit about what they're looking forward to achieving over the next 5 years in collaboration with you and our community. After that, we will have an open floor Q&A, some closing remarks and calls to action, and a post survey to ensure that you got as much as you can out of this meeting this afternoon. Sound good, everyone? Perfect. So to our core, the calling of Blue Zones Project is to empower everyone everywhere to live better, longer. And so, you often ask someone the question, would you want to live to 100 years old? And most people go, no, no way. But I think if you shift that question and you say, would you like to live to 100 years old, living your very best life, free of disease, able to walk, enjoying your family, your loved ones, your spiritual practices, I think that question would change a little bit. And so what we're looking to do with Blue Zones Project is to create an environment and a culture where you can live your very best life all up into your good years, right? So we, of course, want to get our youngest of our community, but also want to ensure that even our eldest and most seasoned in our community have that opportunity as well. So what does that look like? It looks like really an understanding longevity hotspots, which our founder, Dan Buettner, researched over a decade to understand what are the components and characteristics of communities that allow them to live better and longer. And when we say better, longer, right, we're not just talking about my grandmother just had her 91st birthday, and that's great. But we're talking about communities where people were living up into 100, 101, 102 pockets of these hotspots all over the world. And at first glance, they really don't have much in common, right? We've got California to Okinawa, Sardinia to Costa Rica, but they had 9 characteristics that we call our Power 9 that have been proven to be scientific factors in how people can live better, longer, and well. So our Power 9, as you'll see, are 9 characteristics, but we break them into what we call our core 4, which we'll see in the middle color-coded into movement, right outlook, eating wisely, and connection. And through these 9 characteristics that all work together, we can create a community and an environment where people can live their very best lives, regardless of their zip code or where they live. So we have those 5 longevity hotspots across the globe, which is great. And we have all of this data and we really have this grasp on what that looks like. And then we have to dial it down into what does this look like for community? So Blue Zones has done this 75 times across the United States. It's not just Florida. It's not just Texas. It's not just Minnesota. And it's not just Washington. It's so many places in our community that have their unique identities, much like Jacksonville, and their own characteristics and qualms. And so what we get to do in Jacksonville is to take a local team, most of us born and raised here, to really understand the characteristics of what we call home from an asset-based approach to ensure success in building a better, healthier, happier Jacksonville where we all can thrive no matter our zip code. So our blueprint is our strategic plan for the next 5 years. Our blueprint is really on brand, right? When we talk about Blue Zone. So it was a little too boring to just say our strategic plan or our North Star document outline. Our blueprint really is a living document that gives us an opportunity to, again, understand the qualms of our community and work in collaboration with leaders like you all, organizations, employers, students, and parents to really understand what does this look like in building a healthier and happier Jacksonville. It's one thing to idealize it, it's another thing to actually do it. And so the more voices that we have at the table to help guide this work and execute, the better off that we will all be together in our community. So in our blueprint, a living document, it will share our partners and community, the story of how Blue Zones even came to Jacksonville, our goals, what we call certification, which will allow us to be an official Blue Zones Project community, what we're looking forward to doing in year 1, which if you were at our kickoff of June 2023, June 3rd of 2024 would be our year 1, and some of the strategies that we're looking forward to getting there. As we said, this is a living document, so nothing is set in stone. The more that we hear from you, the more that we understand, the more that you are willing to offer your insight, your resources, and your collaborations, the better off that we will be able to create a stronger objective and strategy to building a better and healthier Jacksonville. So how do we do that? We have an incredible team locally that is boots on the ground day in and day out, really trying to understand the opportunities of our community. So you've met myself, you've met my colleague, Kristen Murray, who is our engagement and marketing lead, other known as People. Rashid Williams, who works specifically in our schools, Marlo Zarka, who is our public policy lead, Brittany Camps, our organization and well-being leader, and Yanira Cardona, who is our event specialist, ensuring that we have an opportunity to do events directly with community to show up and show out. So we are so excited to have you with us this afternoon and to share a little bit more about what we're up to as an organization. I will now pass it over to my colleague Marlo Zarka to share a little bit about policy and what we're doing in that realm.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate that. I'm excited to be here to share this part of our work with you, because this is the part where we get our community leaders really putting our well-being at the forefront of all of their decision making. And we do so in 4 very specific areas that we're going to talk about tonight. We do it with what's called the built environment. We also do it within alcohol and tobacco, as well as within food systems. And we'll go into what each one of those areas talk about. I love the work that I get to do, because every day we are talking to not only those people that are making our decisions for us, but we're talking with the community that can help inform their decisions. And it really means a lot. So the built environment, I want to be clear about talking with you, is to have the opportunity, like the Power 9 is designed to do, is to reverse engineer the very place that we live. So I want you all to take a minute and think about going outside where you live. Right away, you're looking at a sidewalk, a pathway, some level of a parking lot where you have to begin interacting with your world around you. And this is what we call the built environment. We want to make sure that we can increase the level of shade. We want to increase the level of access to your parks. We want to increase that where you live is the very space that will make it easier for you to be as healthy as you want to be. And we do it by making sure that we can make pedestrian safe, bicyclist safe, people that have alternative modes of movement also have the opportunity to be in their environment to support walking and as well as coming together. Our other area that we work in, which I think is equally important, is the food systems. I want us all to think about, we all have a favorite recipe. It's a recipe from when we were a young kid that somebody made, whether it was a family member or a neighbor, or it was an annual event that you attended, and that food meant something to you. And what we want to do is take those memories that we have from our food, but begin understanding how they inform our storytelling, bring us all together, at the same time have the opportunity to make them as healthy and nutritious for all of us. We want our kids to have access to nutritious food, as well as our seniors. And we really are beginning to learn the landscape here in Jacksonville from our incredible supply of small farmers and urban growers, all the way to our distribution centers, as well as places that are growing food and feeding others that we may not even be aware of. And we want to bring them all together. Other areas that we're really proud of working in is within our tobacco and alcohol. Tobacco, as we all are very familiar with, and there's been a longevity of work done in this area, is to really try to deter use of tobacco, specifically for our young people, but also to help those that are challenged with tobacco problems with regards to cessation programs, and really connecting them with resources, working with our partners. And then the other area is alcohol. Again, we want to talk within the realms of what are some responsible practices that we can bring in so that we can ensure that our roadways are safe, that our businesses that are in the business of providing alcoholic beverages do so as responsibly as possible while discouraging our youth. So in the year ahead, we're going to be working on some amazing projects, and I'm very excited that we can bring you all into it, but I'd like to share just a taste of some of the aspects of the blueprint that you'll see with regards to policy. One of the very early things that we're going to be working on with our folks at the city, as well as some of our folks at the state level with regards to transportation, planning, and those areas, is to bring a new way of considering how we develop new projects, as well as how we make safety improvements happen in our city. And the national way of approaching this is what's called a Vision Zero policy. And in the months ahead, we will be welcoming you to join us for a community forum on a Vision Zero policy with our partners at the city, so you can learn more about what Vision Zero is. But in a very simple sentence, it's imagining that by the year 2030, we will have 0 fatalities on our roadways as a result of building safe, ways for our pedestrians, bicyclists, and people with alternate modes of movement to get about in our city, creating the residents' well-being at the forefront of those decisions. Another example that we have of the work that we're going to be doing relates directly to tobacco. Jacksonville is going to become the city where at every one of our parks and beaches, there will be no tobacco allowed to be used. And that includes a lot of the electronic cigarettes as well. We're following in the footsteps of our community partners at Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, along with Atlantic Beach and Baldwin. And we're really excited because this will allow for those that want to use our parks for their very meaning of coming together and finding a way to be active and moving naturally to not have to handle any secondhand smokes. Again, folks, this is just a taste of the work, and I'd love to throw it out to any comments that you may have of what's coming up or questions, because this is great work and we'd love to invite you into it. So are there any questions in the chat or anybody in the group?
Thanks so much, Marlo, for that. So I'll let Nicole go ahead and unmute herself for any questions in the chat. If you do have a question directly related to policy, please feel free to raise your hand. We have time for about 1 to 2 questions at this point, specifically related to policy.
Looks good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marlo. So now we'll go ahead and move over to our amazing schools lead, Rashid Williams. Rashid?
Good evening. Glad to be with you all today. And as my colleague Kristen said, I'm Rashid Williams, the schools lead for Blue Zones Project Jacksonville. And so short story is we know that our students spend over 900 hours per year in our schools, right? And for our secondary students in middle and high school, even more time. And so we know that schools are the place where they learn majority of the habits that they gain early on in their youth. And so what we believe is schools give us a perfect opportunity to literally invest in our young people, because we know they are our future, right? And that's not just Whitney Houston, right? We believe that truly, and we know the earlier that we help them to adopt these healthy habits, the earlier we can begin to see improvements with our health outcomes as well. And so within our schools, we also have goals that we want to meet that lead towards optimal health and well-being for our young people. And we have certifications targets that we want to meet, approval targets, should I say, that we want to meet to make sure we're meeting the metrics that we have outlined in our blueprint. And then we have our year 1 targets that I'm going to share with you as well. And so, as you see on the screen, our number 1 goal, again, is to create an optimal education environment focused on health outcomes and choices. Again, the most impressionable time we have with our students is in school. And so we want to make sure we use that time wisely and effectively. And so for our approval goals, we want to reach we want 50% of our schools within our target zip codes of 32206, 32208, 32209, 32210, and 32244 to have an approved status. And so that approved status is connected to our schools pledge, which lays out a number of health outcomes, healthy strategies that students can implement to actually become an approved Blue Zone school. And so we also want to have 25% of our schools within those zip codes participate in what we call our walking school bus program. We know that if students show up to school already physically active, their minds are awakened, they're fresh and energized, and they're ready to tackle the day. And so I remember, again, growing up, walking to school, riding my bike to school. So when I showed up to school, my energy was at its peak optimal level. And I had already burned off some of that energy, so I didn't have to go into school overly active, and I was able to lock in and focus. So we want to get back to our students being naturally moving in the morning as they're going into school. And then our year 1 targets, at least 5 schools we want to target to become approved schools. That combination can be 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school. And then we want them, again, to be in our focus zip codes for this project. And so just like my peer, Marlo Zarka, talked about in policy, we have different strategies and objectives that we want to meet as we go through this process. We're only going to touch on a few this evening. And that first one is we want to, again, approve 28 schools in our focus zip codes to become Blue Zones approved schools. And so the first strategy is we realize to do this work, it is going to take a multi-level approach, right? And the first approach is starting from the top down. We got to work with our school district leadership to really, 1, know what the Blue Zones project is, and get their buy-in into making sure that our schools are a place where our students are focused on their health and their well-being. And then the second objective, within that, we want to look at the strategy of working with our district personnel, but also we want to work with parents from a bottom up perspective, right? If we work with parents and students through PTO, PTA organizations, also with other community organizations that are already supporting students, we know that we can actually begin to host workshops that talk about, healthy eating, different strategies they can implement. We also want to talk about, mental health. We know that's a big issue in our community as well. So we want to use those spaces to begin to talk about some of these strategies we believe that could lead to them having a more longer, healthier, and better life. Within that, we know youth engagement is important. I can't, as a parent, I know I try to instill into my daughters, you got to do more than just go to school, good grades, right? You got to be involved in your community. You also have to be a person that's looking to help others and serve within the community through volunteerism. And so I also oversee our youth engagement work. And so with our youth engagement area, our main goal is to inspire, engage, and inform, and literally push our students to get out of their comfort zone, right? And again, looking at the world around them as a way of actually having an impact within their community. And so one of our year one targets is to host one community youth wellness event before June 2024. And so I've already begun to have conversations through our youth engagement sector committee with some of our supporters, looking at what is that going to look like? What are some of the topics that we need to be discussing with our young people, and letting them co-lead this work as well. We don't want to do something to them. We want to do something along with them that hits the key points of things they want to talk about and things they want to see happen. And so as we increase youth programming focused on health and well-being, we want to include our students. We want them to let us know, like, what topics do you want us to address in the health summit? What activities would you want to do within this summit? We don't want it to all just be sit and get. We want to see if there's some community initiatives we can take on during that time as well. And so I'll hand it back over to we'll open the floor right now for a few questions anyone may have in regards to schools.
Yes, Mr. Rasheed Williams, great presentation, and you have a heart for the future, which is important. Have you ever considered financial education programs, financial literacy programs for the youth?
Yes, we definitely recognize that is a key component to well-being, right? If you don't understand how to operate with money, I'm sure most of the adults on this call, many of us had to learn that through trial and error. Some mistakes, right? And so the earlier, just like those healthy outcomes and those healthy behaviors and choices we can build in our students early, the same is true for financial literacy. We need them to know what it means to even balance a checkbook. What does it mean to even write a check, right? In this world now, most people are straight through apps or online, and we need to still know how to fill out a check and actually submit one, right? And so financial literacy is a part of that process as well. So great question.
Okay, thanks for sharing.
I also just want to call out that one of our sponsors is Community First Credit Union, who is building out a financial well-being program that will roll out to the community at large for all partners and community members to take advantage of.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that question, Ty, and for that response, Rasheed and Nicole. So now we're going to toss it over to our dear friend, Brittany Camps, who has the awesome privilege of managing the people pillar of this work. And Brittany, without further ado.
As Kirsten mentioned, I have the pleasure of leading our places. So we know that almost all Americans spend 90% of their lives within 20 miles of their home. Here at Blue Zones Project, we call it our life radius. So when it comes to our life radius, we really want to focus on those areas that we spend the most time in, the places that we go to most often. As part of my work for places, I oversee restaurants, grocery and convenience stores, and work sites. So for restaurants, it is our ultimate goal to adopt best practices to create an optimal dining environment for diners, staff, and those restaurant owners. Over the next 5 years, we would like to approve at least 12 full-service restaurants in our focus zip codes. As mentioned before, our focus zip codes are 32206, 32208, 32209, 32210, and 32244. However, we know that Jacksonville has an array of wonderful food options. So in addition to approving those 12 full service restaurants, our goal is to approve restaurants in Jacksonville that are interested in being Blue Zones approved. For our first year, our goal is to approve at least 3 restaurants. So 2 within our focus zip codes, as well as an additional restaurant that's outside of our zip code. And our goal is possibly to do more in that first year. So we realize that not everyone, or you don't always have all your meals at restaurants. So what's also important is our grocery stores and convenience stores. Think about if you need to pick up an item from the store. More than likely, you're going to go to that store that's closest to your home or closest to your work. So our goal is to create an optimal environment for grocery shopping focused on health outcomes and choices. So our goal over the next 5 years is to approve a minimum of 24 grocery stores and convenience stores within our zip codes. As I mentioned with restaurants, we're going to focus in our zip codes as well as expand. But for grocery stores, like I stated before, if it's something that you need to grab from the store, more than likely you're going to actually go to the store that's nearest to you. So for our first year, our goal is to work with 5 grocery stores and or convenience stores within our focus zip codes to ensure that there are more healthy food choices, as well as to make sure that everyone in our zip codes have the opportunity to access those options. Work sites. The majority of us on this call are either coming from work, headed to work, retired. So we know that research has stated that best practices help employees. When employees move better, eat better, connect more effectively, and stress levels are down, that improves our organization's bottom line. But in terms, thinking about it from the standpoint of being an employee, if you're going to work, or majority of us spend a lot of time at work, or the majority of our time at work, we want to make sure that we are creating a work environment that supports and improves the well-being of employees, employers, and their families. So over the next 5 years, our goal is to approve enough work sites as Blue Zones project approved work sites that impact 25% of our workforce in our focus zip codes. So what that means is if a work site has 1,000 employees, we will work with that work site to make sure that changes are made that affect the 1,000 employees. But in this 24,819 number, we're only going to count those 100 employees because we really want to make sure that we are focusing on our residents in those zip codes. But again, if there is an employer who is outside of our zip codes, or employer who would just like to make well-being a priority for their employees, we will work with them as part of the project. So in our first year, our goal is to engage 5% of our focus area residents or more of the work sites within Blue Zones Project Jacksonville focus zip codes. So I wanted to provide a snapshot, a very small snapshot of some of the strategies and objectives for work sites. There will be strategies and objectives for restaurants and grocery stores, as well as the complete list for work sites within our blueprint. So one of the objectives I wanted to discuss is approving or certifying work sites that employ residents from our focus zip codes. So one thing about our sponsor organizations here in Jacksonville is our sponsor organizations are some of the largest employers in Jacksonville, as well as some of the most recognized. So one of our strategies is to engage with our sponsor organizations to help them become early adopters of the Blue Zones Project pledge. These organizations have committed to well-being of Jacksonville. So those will be some of the work sites we work with first. Another objective is improve or support employee well-being by offering education and awareness about mental health through adoption of policies and programs. The great thing is a lot of our employers already have some type of EAP program or mental health services on site. However, we did a great job or tried our best to listen to the community. And one of the things that came up in a few town halls was the fact that if they know that the employer offer mental health services, maybe to access or maybe not being aware. So one of our strategies is to work and collaborate with each approved work site to either adopt a health plan that offers mental health services, promote the employee assistance plan, or partner with an organization that offers free or low-cost mental health services to employees and their families.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brittany, for covering all that great information. I know that we had a lot of information specifically with the places work because it's really, really dense. And so, Nicole, if you could bring up a few questions from the chat, if there are any, and then if anyone else has questions, please feel free to raise your hand to be called on.
Sure. So a couple of things that came up were about ideas that we have to improve restaurants. So what you will see is what we do is kind of present a rubric of best practices to organizations for them to kind of create their own healthy environment, if you will. So Brittany and her team will really be working to say, here are some of our best practices. What is going to work for you? So it's our ideas, but they get to choose what works best for their organization. And while we are not actively recruiting new restaurants to come into the space, if any of them are coming into these areas, of course, we want to work with them. I know Tallulah Bistro is coming into Springfield later this year. That's a great opportunity as well. Also, Brittany, there was kind of a question about full service restaurants. I believe that it's a sit-in experience, but I just want to have you confirm and explain full service versus fast casual.
So when it comes to full service, we think about when you sit down, a waitress or a server comes to your table, take your order, gives you the option of having to-go plates. So more of full service versus a place where you would go in and order and maybe take your food to go.
And then I just as we can tie two back together, there was a question about obesity. One of what you'll see in our blueprint is what we call community-wide metrics that we can track year over year. And one of those goals is to decrease both childhood and adult obesity. So when we talk about some of the food systems work that the policy team is doing, as well as creating healthier places through grocery stores and restaurants and work sites, we're confident that that metric will decrease and hopefully in turn help decrease some the obesity challenges that we face in our community.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brittany, and thank you, Nicole, for those questions, as well as to the audience. I love the engagement and the questions that you're asking. They're incredibly insightful. And so now I'll go ahead and share a little bit about our people work. So this work doesn't happen without people. And so one of the things that we recognize is that people have a way of changing their habits and mindsets so that they can make healthy choices for the entirety of their lives. So while places focuses on ensuring that the places where you spend the time help you do those things, and the policy work undergirds all of that, people still have choices, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about the people part of this work. So people breaks down into several different parts. The first is individuals. We also have faith-based organizations as well as civic and social organizations. And so we'll talk about each of those today. So our goal is to really engage our residents in 32206, 08, 09, 10, and 44 to improve their overall health and well-being. And the way that we do this is getting 15% of the population within those zip codes to join up with us in this work. So y'all, that's 23,333 folks. But we believe that we can do it. In part because we've already been in partnership with these communities. People have already signed the personal pledge. They've already said, oh, I want to participate in a MOI, which is a small group that meets for 10 weeks of about 5 to 8 individuals where people really build connection. Some of you have already registered for our purpose workshop on August 3rd, where you'll be able to take a deeper dive in understanding what your purpose is. And then we also have people who are interested in participating in a program like our Lit to Learn in partnership with the Jacksonville Public Libraries that's happening in July. And then we also have people who are interested in volunteering with the project. So individuals really make this project run. And so if you're interested in being involved or considering your health and well-being, you could be one of the 23,333. And let me just say, if you're outside of our zip codes of focus, this is still for you. You can still participate. We'd love to have you. And so that's for our entirety of our project. But for our first year, we really want to get at least 3,033 people involved in this work. And those are people ages 15 and older. Again, you heard me mention faith-based. All of us at some point know someone or attend a faith-based organization. So whether that's your church, your synagogue, your mosque, or it's a small group of people who get together, we recognize that faith-based work is an integral part of our community. And so we currently have 456 faith-based organizations across our zip codes of focus. And so we really want to make sure that we engage with these institutions because people attend faith-based services. And so our goal for year one is to really work with 5 or more faith-based organizations to really transform health and well-being and have conversations about what that looks like across our community. And the same is true with civic and social organizations. We know that the work across our community doesn't happen inside of a vacuum, that there are robust organizations, whether you're the Rotary Club or you're the United Way of Northeast Florida, right? We know that all of these organizations are a part of this work. And so one of the things that you'll see is under certification targets, we really want to engage with at least 15 nonprofit organizations to do this work. And so in year one, we're going to focus on a minimum of 4 civic and social organizations to either host a MOI or a purpose workshop or something like that. So again, this work is robust and happens in community. And one of the biggest ways that we get the word out about it is through media. So we have some media partners who we're already working with who have shared the message of Blue Zones Project. I'm sure some of you who are here today saw the notice on WJXT, which is why you're here. So we're really glad to have WJXT as one of our media partners. But we really want to solidify the story so that people know what's happening in their community. It's also important for us to note that the Jacksonville Free Press is one of our media partners as well, who's committed to this work. And so we want to have media partners as a part of this work so that they can get the story out and share it with you as we continue to share the story on our own social media channels. And so some of the strategies, right? We're interested in collaborating the work between faith-based and nonprofit institutions so that we can really have conversations around what's going well, what's working in our communities. And so one of the strategies that we have is hosting workshops between faith-based and nonprofit organizations to enhance that communication. Another way that we really want to get the word out about what's happening with Blue Zones Project Jacksonville is to create this deep sense of connection. And the way that we do that is by knocking on doors. Some of you might have already seen us in your neighborhood in these blue shirts. We're going to keep showing up because we really want you to know what's happening in your community with regards to health and well-being. So again, these are just some of the strategies that are inside of our blueprint, which will be housed on our website next week. But I wanted to be sure to just take a quick moment, kickstand down. You've gotten a lot of information. We have about 10 minutes for a Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this larger screen down so that we can talk to each other a little bit face to face. Please feel free to ask your questions inside of the chat, but also if you do have a question, please feel free to raise your hand so that we can have you come off mute and we can just chat a little bit today together.
Great presentation, by the way. Great presentation. I'm new to Jacksonville. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky. I've lived in 8 different states, so I love this. I haven't seen too many programs like this as I've traveled around the USA. Just have 2 things that I want to mention. I know Nicole mentioned that she's working with a financial institution. I'll be interested in seeing what they have to offer to you because I've worked in banking, mortgage, and finance, and I know this, you know, I taught personal finance at Wayne State University, And before the pandemic, we were looking to build a financial literacy center in downtown Detroit, working with PNC and another foundation. And sometimes, it's more than sometimes learning how to fill out a paycheck. We really need to talk to our young people about simple financial concepts, before they jump into cryptocurrency or trying to, own a laundry list of businesses. It's just, basic, simple steps without learning a complex strategy. So, I'll be willing listening for how that turns out. Another thing, dealing with young people, dealing with community as you do. I heard Brittany talk about restaurants with entrepreneurship. I taught entrepreneurship at Westchester University outside of Philadelphia, and recently taught family business management at the University of North Florida. I think that it's a great chance for us, to talk to young people about entrepreneurship, families, women in particular, because there's like 95% women on this call, about entrepreneurship to create jobs, to open up different options and opportunities, to create real jobs in our communities, to maximize our growth, and to create an economic safeguard around Jacksonville. I'm more than happy to to listen and see how I can plug in to see if there's potential to talk about entrepreneurship, because women businesses, particularly Black businesses, lost 44% of these organizations during the pandemic. And I know Jacksonville's growing. That's a reason why I moved here. So I'm gonna digress right there. And I'm just interested in knowing about potential to talk about entrepreneurship and small business growth in the community.
Absolutely. So Ty, a couple of things, I'll hop in here and then I'm sure our team will as well. One of the things that I really hear is your heart specifically for young people in this work, right? And so this work happens in sector committees. And so we'll talk a little bit later on today about how you can get involved in a sector committee. But really what the sector committees do is each of those pillars of people, places, and policy, and schools as well. Underneath schools, there's also that piece around youth engagement. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Rashid. He's been doing some incredible work with different youth organizations across the city who are really excited about health and well-being, as well as that financial literacy piece that you're talking about, because Community First Credit Union is really building out a robust plan for that as well. So I think that that's a really great way for you to sync up with this work. I'm so excited you're in Duval. We need your kind of energy here. So welcome. And then with regards to, the questions and thoughts around entrepreneurship, I definitely think that Marlo Zarka, who is our public policy lead, is a good point of contact for you, because she has a lot of conversations with our chamber here locally. And so I think that that's part of that work too. So those are a couple of inroads that I'd suggest. Any other thoughts, team?
I was just going to say that you're right on the right track, because our call to action has a lot of this stuff of how to get involved and kind of where to look. I also want to be super clear that what our role as Blue Zones Project is, because we all know that we can't boil the ocean. So what we can do is to really work in some of these systemic and environmental things that are happening in our community. We don't just focus on certain demographics or certain people. While we are focused on these zip codes, when we say that we talk about improving restaurants, it doesn't necessarily mean we're not thinking about the food deserts, right? So
Sure.
We're looking at this from a systemic approach. And I just kind of wanted to tee that up for everybody to understand, is like, there are so many issues, which is why this is a community-based project that we can all get through and work together in. And where we're coming in from is really, what can we do? What are the things that happen in our community systemically, environmentally, and policy that will then in turn begin to change crime rates, change how elderly people are living, to improve accessibility for our differing ability population. So I just wanted to say that we're thinking about all of these things, even though we can't boil the ocean. So I hope that provides a little bit of clarity around our role. Our role is really convening in breaking systems and improving systems and getting roadblocks out of the way for our community and other organizations to succeed and improve, creating a healthier and happier Jacksonville.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate you.
Nicole, there's a question in the chat that discusses why were these zip codes chosen? If you don't mind, maybe give me some insight on that.
Sure. So I'm so glad that I've got my good friend Debbie Watkins on the call with me to make sure that I get everything. So these zip codes were chosen specifically. So what Blue Zones Project did when they were first invited in was to really to do a readiness and feasibility assessment, which kind of it's like dating, right? Kind of take you out, see what you've got going on, see what your government's got going on, see what the community has going on, and to really begin to understand, is this the right fit, the right project for this community, right? And so then once that was established, that was conversations with employers, community leaders, faith-based organizations, all of those things, and even getting Gallup involved to be a data resource to hear from community itself of what is happening and going on. Blue Zones was officially brought in, really understanding that we do have communities and neighborhoods that have not always gotten the shiny end of the spoon, right? So it really looked at where's the most opportunity, but not because of that they're lacking, but because there's a lot of assets there, right? 32209 has the most churches in any of their zip code. Optimism in 32208 was off the charts in the initial assessment, right? So there are a lot of things that we get to, as a team, build off of, while addressing that there are some things that are in fact lacking, right? There are food deserts. There are schools that don't have libraries organized like RV Daniels, right? So we really begin to understand not just the challenges, but the assets and the strengths that already exist in these communities. There are people that volunteer out east on a regular basis. There are people that say hello to their neighbors on the west side. So it is beyond what is missing. It also goes into, yes, there's opportunity, and there's also a lot of really good bones here that we can move off of as well.
And I'm sorry, I'm Debbie Watkins. I'm with the National Blue Zones team. And the only thing that I would add to Nicole's very comprehensive review of why we chose the zip codes that we chose is just a little bit deeper on how much of this is based on data. So we do a full baseline analysis from Gallup. So Gallup conducts surveys across the country that conduct a very specific survey in well-being. That survey data was then analyzed by experts that we have at Oxford University, who worked to understand where the greatest opportunity was in Jacksonville. We layered that with what our experts saw when they were doing their discovery work and assessment work in Jacksonville, and with the voice of the community. So we heard very clearly from a number of leaders in the community how important certain zip codes were to Jacksonville to drive improvements there. And they wanted those zip codes, and there was opportunity. So the combination was then put together for us to identify the 5 zip codes where we're now focusing our work.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nicole and Debbie, for that clarity. We have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. If you would, please keep your questions concise so that we can get as many in as possible. All right. Well, what I'm going to do then, seeing no hands and no extra questions inside of the chat, I'm going to continue to share our presentation. Oh, okay, I see one hand. Oh, Dr. Harmon is here. Hi, Dr. Harmon, we're glad to have you. Go ahead. If I'm gonna ask you to unmute, and if you can unmute yourself, we'll gladly take your question. Are you able to unmute yourself, Dr. Harmon? If not, please feel free to type your question inside of the chat.
I do know Dr. Harmon had in the chat a question about the incoming administration and our relationships with the incoming mayor-elect and the chief health officer. Marlo, do you have any comments about where we're going with that in terms of our city partnership?
Absolutely. We are looking forward to the inauguration celebration. I think right now it's fair to say that there is a true transition going on. However, the city, was one of the early adopters of the Blue Zones project, and that went just beyond the administration, but we have a number of employees and departments that are involved in our work, and we are looking forward to continuing that. So we are already working at getting on schedules of city council people as they are coming into office or those that are staying on. And we look forward to getting the opportunity to present to both Mayor-elect Deegan and her executive staff to bring them up to speed. We're really excited about the fact that Blue Zones Project Jacksonville was something that was mentioned often during the campaign season. So we recognize it as something that was of value to people of all spectrums, and we look forward to that work. So we will be continuing that. We have been contacted by a number of people on the executive team that want to learn more already. So that's a really good sign. So we'll be having those conversations, and you'll be hearing more from that as the months go on. I'm saying about 15 days to let the dust settle, but we'll see what's happened.
Thank you. This is Bob Hartman. That was the question I was going to ask.
Perfect. Glad to have you here, Dr. Herman. And thank you so much, Marlo and Nicole, for providing that insight. So what we'll do now, now that we finished our Q&A, is go ahead and finish up with the rest of our program. We ask that you all please stay until 6:30 because we have some really great gems that we want to share with you. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to our Executive Director, Nicole Ham.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And thank you to this incredible team here. So just before you guys go, and I know we have 6 minutes, and I'm sure that you all are really busy people and have things to do, but just please keep an eye on your screen and on the chat as well. We are extremely committed to transparency, right? So this blueprint is a full document that is about 120 pages that we will be getting up onto our website within the next week. We are ironing out, we are not software developers, so we are at the mercy of all things that click and don't work. So we are working through that as a team right now, but this will be accessible to you at any point in time, along with some background data and information as well. The blueprint is in a PDF format where you can click through and read through it. I don't believe it is downloadable, but when you join a sector committee and have some more intense conversations, there's totally an opportunity to kind of get a little bit deeper into the weeds about certain things. The way that our software is set up is kind of the way that we can't make it downloadable. You'll see in our other assessments and things like that, it's all through a click page. So that's just unfortunately a technological barrier. So a couple of actions that we can take today, as you'll see in the chat from our project manager, Tiara, a link to the Blue Zones Project Pledge. I know you heard Kristen talk about this a little bit earlier, but it's really saying, I want to be a part of creating a healthier, happier Jacksonville, and I'm going to start with me, right? So we don't try to make it hard. It's just a couple of things that get you started on that healthier lifestyle of moving and doing some other things in that way. A sector committee, I think you saw in the chat some of our leaders posting their meeting schedules and cadences. We will also include this in a follow-up email along with the link to this recording and our YouTube channel. I don't believe that we are able to attach it in our chat, unfortunately, but this is where the work really happens. It's super exciting to be a part of something where you can say, I know this person, I know that person, and this is what I think we should do or you shouldn't do, or you're missing Jeannie from down the street that should absolutely be a part of this. So this works as well as our community does. And so it's important that our community has a voice in the work that we're doing. So we absolutely invite you to join a sector committee. They all meet once a month for no more than an hour to honor your time as well. We also have the Blue Zones Challenge app, which is available also on our website. Tiara will drop the Blue Zones Project Jacksonville website. And what you'll see is there is a clickable tab where you can download the Blue Zones Challenge, which is a 4-week program that really walks you through what do we mean when we talk about this Blue Zones lifestyle and what could that look like. It is kind of self-paced. So, no one's watching you, it's on your phone, and you can do whatever you need to do. We do not take anybody's data. So just to kind of clear anything of that up, it's an app that just nudges you into different parts of a healthier lifestyle each and every day. And then of course, our upcoming events, we have an events tab on our website as well. We have a couple of exciting things coming up. We're going to be doing the 4-week challenge in person in partnership with the Jacksonville Library, meeting weekly, facilitated by Brittany Camps and Rashid Williams. It's a 4-week commitment with it kicking off on July 6th and running through the end of the month. And then we have our purpose workshop on August 3rd. So we're really going to kind of tap into what does all of this mean for me and where I am in my life, and what can that look like. So we are super excited to be bringing this programming to you and hope that you'll be able to take advantage of it. Like I said, everything will live on our website. We also invite you to subscribe to our newsletter. In our post survey that Tiara will be posting, you have an opportunity to share your email address with us to subscribe you to this newsletter. We don't take your information from signing up from this call. You do have to opt in to those emails. So as you can see on the screen, our social media is at BZP Jacksonville, our website, bluezonesprojectjacksonville.com. We are just so thrilled to do this with you, and we could not do this without our incredible and most generous sponsors. So what you will see on our screen is just a powerhouse of organizations that have come together, not just from healthcare, but from government, from finance, from insurance, from philanthropic, education. It's just an incredible layout. So big thank you to Baptist Health, Brooks Rehab, City of Jacksonville, Community First Credit Union, Florida Blue, Jacksonville Jaguars, Jacksonville University, Jesse Ball DuPont Fund, Mayo Clinic, UF Health, and United Way. We couldn't do this work without their support. So thank you. We do have our QR code for our post survey, if that's easier for you. Tiara also dropped it in the chat as well. It's that Google Docs link. Please let us know if there's any issues with it at all. And we just thank you so much for joining us and spending an hour of your time this evening to hear a little bit more about what we're up to and where we're going. And we just are absolutely thrilled that you might decide and choose to be a part of that ride with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, well, I will, I don't know if we've got music queued up to just kind of exit us all out, but thank you so much for your time today. And we look forward to hearing more from you and getting involved. And please fill out that survey so that we are able to have your information if you wish and continue to build this work and this project in our community.